everybody, and welcome to the Kids Table Pizza Party. My name's Anastasia. I'm one of the co-owners of the Kids Table, and we are so excited to have you guys join us and make some pizza. So before we get started, the first things we need to do is we want to go and turn the oven on and preheat it to 450. And then also, if you haven't done it yet, you also want to take out your dough, which I have over here, just so it can start to warm up and really be ready for us when we're ready to roll it out. So, everybody who bought one of our pizza kits, we're so excited about all the pizza kits we sold today. You guys already have your dough set, but I'm also gonna make some dough with you guys. We are gonna do a little bit of kitchen magic here, so you won't be able to keep up exactly if you are making the dough with us, but you can always pause it or rewind and come back to it. So the first thing I'm gonna add in here is our dry activated yeast. And yeast is alive, so it's a single cell organism, and it's alive, and right now it is sleeping. So what we wanna do is we are going to wake it up. So we are gonna add some warm water, and our warm water is gonna be about 95 degrees. We don't want it to be hot, because that'll end up killing our yeast. So we're just gonna go and mix it all up there. You wanna get all of it really mixed up. And then we are gonna add in some of our sugar. So our sugar is what our yeast eats, and it's gonna help wake up our yeast. I'm gonna give that a really good whisk. And then if you are doing this at home, what you wanna do is you're gonna put it to the side and let it sit for about 15 minutes. And then you'll come back and you will see some activated yeast. Can you see them in there? It'll be nice and fluffy. You'll see lots of little air bubbles in it from it burping. And once it gets to that point is when we are ready to work with our yeast. So, I've got some of our flour here. We use all-purpose and whole wheat flour, so I'm gonna pour all of that in, just like that. And at this point, you're gonna start moving on to a wooden spoon, because if you use a whisk, it'll just get all stuck in there. Do you have a question?
Facebook is saying that this started about 15 minutes ago, but it did not start 15 minutes ago.
Okay.
It did start at 4, so.
Great, yes, no, we are just starting right now. And I can actually slow down if everybody wants to take a minute, if you guys are getting everything together. We can go over some of the tools we need for today. I'm gonna push my dough aside. So I have our chopper here for anybody who has those at home. This is what we're gonna use as a knife. Then we have our scissors, our small grater, a rolling pin, and a cutting board. So those are all the tools we're gonna need besides our burner and our saucepan. Okay, great. So if everybody's ready, I'm gonna go back over here and we've got our dough. So, whoop, as I throw it everywhere. We are going to just really mix that up. And the last things you need to add in there is our salt, and then about a tablespoon of olive oil. And pour that right in, and then mix that up. Just like that. Once you get your dough completely all together, you're gonna do something called kneading. To knead our dough, we're gonna take the palm of our hand and push down and really get that gluten working inside of it. So let me clean up my little mess here. Just like that. And then we're gonna start on the first thing. So for everybody at home, if you can get out your pizza dough next. That is the next thing we need to do. So, it is very light and fluffy right now. We let that dough sit for about an hour after we get it all kneaded together, and it'll get light and fluffy. And then the dough that we sent home with you guys is about 6 small servings of pizza, or 4 slightly larger, or 1 giant pizza. So just depending on how many people in your group, depends on how many pieces you want to cut this into.
We have some friends wondering if we're going to preheat the oven.
We are, yes. We preheated the oven, sorry if you guys missed that at the beginning, to 450 degrees is what we wanted at. So we can start that now. If you have pizza stone, you can put that in there to preheat too, and that'll just make your pizza extra crunchy on the bottom. But otherwise, there's no problem. You can just put it right on a sheet pan. Perfect. So now that we have our dough, we're going to go ahead and cut it right down the middle. And depending on how many people in your group, like I said, we just want to divide it by that many people. So I'm going to break this up into 4 different pieces. And you can see it's pretty wet. So if you're dealing with some really wet dough, you can take a little bit of flour and knead it into it just to make it a little bit less sticky. And then we are going to take some of our cornmeal. So we're going to take a generous amount of cornmeal and put it right in front of us. Does anybody know what cornmeal could be made of? Any ideas out there? Maybe? No? Well, I'll give you a second. See if you get any responses, and then I'll come back with it. I'll give you a hint. The word is cornmeal. So, it's made from corn, guys. So we took our rolling pin next, and this time we're just gonna really push down and start rolling it out. One of the fun things about making your own pizza dough is you can make it any way you want. So if you like thick crust, you can make it a little bit thicker. If you like it really thin, I like mine paper thin, so I make mine really thin. But you can also make it into whatever shape you like. So I like to make mine into heart shapes. So the best way to do that, if you're looking to make a heart-shaped pizza, is to start with a triangle. So you can use your hands to kind of mold it into a triangle shape and just push down. It usually helps a lot if you stand up for this too. We're just gonna go back and forth. It's really important that once you roll out your pizza dough, you don't wanna roll it up again and then roll it out again. It'll just make your pizza dough tough. So we just wanna try to get it right the first time. You can make stars. I've seen octopuses before. Square pizzas are always fun. So we're just gonna keep on rolling and stretching. All right. You also can use, if you don't have cornmeal at home, there's semolina flour you can use, or you can just use a little bit of regular flour. You do want to make sure that if you're using regular flour, that you brush off your pizza dough before you're done, because you don't want it to be coated with too much flour, because it'll give it just kind of a dusty flavor then. Okay, just like that. So now that I'm at this point, where I'm at a triangle, we want our pizza dough, if we're using the kit we used, to have it be about the size of your face. If you divide your dough into 6 pieces, you're generally going to get it about the size of your face to start once you roll it out. So you want it pretty big so you can do a measurement. Let's see, how did I do? Can you see me? I think I got it. All right, and like I was saying, I'm going to do a heart. So I've got a good triangle going so far. And now what I want to do is I'm going to rip it right down the middle of my pizza, about 1/4 of the way down, and then we're going to work on the crust. So to do the crust, you just pinch up the edges, fold them over, and then pinch them down. And you just want to go all the way around. I'm not really big on crust. I like a smaller crust, so I'm just going to do 1 fold, but if you like a thicker crust, you can also fold twice. We're just going to keep on going. Pinch and pinch. Everybody's keeping up out there. All right. So, now that I'm almost finished with this part, the next thing we need to do is we are doing something called docking. When you dock a pizza, you are taking a fork and you're poking little holes in it all around. What that does is it locks the top of the crust to the bottom so it doesn't fill up with air and become a giant bubble. We do not want a bubble pizza. It'll just end up pushing all of our ingredients off to the side. So I'm gonna go get our fork and give you guys a chance to catch up on everything. All right, and I am back. So you can get a fork just like this, And we are just gonna poke all the way around. Just like that. You can do as many holes as you like. Sometimes I like to even draw little pictures with them.
What can people do if their dough isn't staying stretched out?
You can just also pull it with your hands. You can just gently pull around the sides. It should be a pretty elasticy dough, as long as you let it sit out and warm up a little bit. But it is just like Play-Doh. So if you get a hole in it, you can just push it right back together. All right. So we have our beautiful pizza dough right here. But as you guys can see, this is a very flimsy dough. We cannot go ahead and put any sort of toppings on top of this because it's just gonna fall right off. So the first thing we need to do when you guys are ready is put your dough right on a sheet pan. I like to put it on parchment. If you have a bunch of people, you can also write their names next to it. That way you know who everybody's dough is. And then we're gonna pop it in our oven, and it's gonna be about 5 to 8 minutes. We just wanna get it nice and firmed up and get a little bit of color on it. All right, so while everybody is finishing that step, I'm gonna start cleaning everything up. And then you guys can give me a thumbs up when you're all ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so I'm gonna get all of our dough out of our way. And then we are ready to move on to the next one. So, are we all ready to go? All right. Well, I'm gonna talk a little bit about our tools next while you guys are working on that. So we have our chopper here. If you guys can see, our chopper has a long side and a short side. The long side we always want to go away from us, and the short side is towards us. When we're holding onto anything, you want to make sure we're doing a bear claw to protect all of our fingers and then chop all the way through. So we are moving on to our sauce next. So when you guys are ready, we've got our garlic clove. Do we have a question?
We have a question. What did you say about putting the dough in the oven?
We are going to put the dough in the oven for about 5 to 8 minutes until it's firm and it gets a little bit of color on top, and then we're going to take it out. We're going to par bake it. That way when we are ready with all of our ingredients to top it, it's firm enough that we can put all the toppings on. So, like I was saying, we've got our garlic clove here. Our garlic clove, we want to make sure to chop off that ending part. You can chop off both sides if you'd like. And then you want to, depending on how many people you have in your group, you want to divide your garlic clove up by that many people. So, it is just me here, but you're going to slice it lengthwise, just like that, and then you can pass those out to everybody. It'll be a nice thin piece that'll help everybody chop it up. Once we take those pieces with our bear claw, we're going to hold all of our fingers in and just start pushing down and chopping through. We want to do a small dice just to start to break up all of those pieces. And then we're going to take that pile and we're going to put it right in the middle of our cutting board. And then we're going to take both hands on top for this part and go really close to the cutting board and start hopping up and down. So we call this a bunny hop here, but it's actually, we are mincing up our garlic. Ooh.
Does the oven temperature have to be 450 for the initial bake?
You can set it at 450, you can set it at 475, depending on your oven temperature. Some ovens, run a little bit higher than others. Typically, pizza ovens, commercial pizza ovens go up to 800 degrees. So there's really no worry of, burning your pizza. You just need to keep an eye on it. There's no having it too hot. You just want to make sure that you have an eye on it and you don't leave it in there too long. So if you are setting it slightly higher, you can just definitely take it out a little bit earlier. So now that we're getting that all minced up, I'm gonna move on to my next piece and start slicing. And you just wanna make those into tiny, tiny pieces. If anybody's ever tried raw garlic before, it's very, very spicy. That's one of the reasons why I wanna make it nice and tiny so we get all the flavor through everything. And it's just well incorporated into our sauce. But if anybody feels like getting a little crazy and trying their garlic and like spicy things, you are more than welcome. We just want to go ahead and wash our hands right after. So I'm going to mince this all up. And then, if anybody's feeling a little wild with me and trying some garlic with me, we can try that next. But you should probably have some water close because it is going to be spicy. So I'm mincing. Just keep pushing it back to the center because that garlic's going to want to jump out of the way.
We still have a few friends rolling out some dough.
Cool.
And another person wanted to know why they were dividing up the garlic.
Oh, I was dividing up the garlic just to make sure that everybody in your group, if you're cooking with multiple people, all get a piece. So it's just, that's how we do it at the kids' table when we pass out our garlic. And if you do it lengthwise, it gives them a nice small piece to chop up. So yes, you do not have to slice it all separately and then chop it. That is just the way to make sure that everybody gets a piece and everybody gets to join in on chopping. So I'm just going to keep on mincing. Another fun fact about raw garlic, it is so good for you, so I always suggest putting it in anything you can. If you're doing your own salad dressings and things like that, it's really good to regulate your blood pressure. If anybody's having any blood pressure issues, or it's also really good for cholesterol. So now that I've got that all minced up, I'm gonna brush it right off my chopper, and then I'm gonna find a little piece to try. So if anybody is interested, you can go ahead and try it with me now. Let's see. Yep, just as spicy as I remember it being, but still very delicious and good for you. So I'm gonna go get my hands washed. You guys can finish doing your dough, and I will be right back. All right, and I am back. And just for anybody who is behind, don't worry, we are saving all of these. So you can definitely rewind at the end and catch all up with that. But did anybody try the garlic? What did we think? It was a lot. It was actually spicier than I remembered. But if you are ready, we went ahead and put all of our minced garlic right in here. So garlic is very sensitive. You do not want to cook garlic for very long. So it can burn very easily. So what you're looking for is just to start to smell it. It'll start to be fragrant. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil in my pan with my garlic, about a tablespoon. And then I'm going to pop it on. So we're going to let that start to warm up. And then give it just one moment. And we don't actually want to see any color on it. If you start to see it brown, it is definitely ready to go before that. So you can go ahead and throw your tomato sauce in. My pan is a lot colder than I thought it was. So we're going to give that one more second and keep it going. But I do have our tomato sauce that we're going to add in next once it's nice and fragrant. So we're going to add that right on top. See it start to bubble. Maybe you can smell it just a little bit. But you can see too that once it starts sauteing, it'll actually turn a little bit whiter first. So that's the color you're looking for. Make sure it's all in there, right in the oil, and it's getting nice and white. And then you'll start to smell it. And then that'll be the time to add in our tomato sauce. So, our tomato sauce is cold too at this point. So when you add it in, you need to be very careful because you don't want it to splatter back and have a hot oil splattering at you. So I'm going to pour it in nice and slow.
What are you adding to the garlic?
My tomato sauce. So it's just canned tomato sauce. Just tomatoes, and it has a little bit of salt and sugar in it that comes in canned sauce. So we've added that in, and I'm just going to give it a quick mix. Just like that, get that garlic all the way through it, so make sure it's not sitting on the bottom, just burning. So once you get mixed into the sauce, you won't need to worry about that. And then, we have to season it. So, here I have a bay leaf. The bay leaf we're gonna put in whole. We don't want to eat our bay leaf, so before we make our pizzas, we're gonna go ahead and take our bay leaf out. And then I have 1 teaspoon of oregano. We're going to put that right on top. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. We don't want it boiling. Just a nice simmer. So now we got that simmer going. And then we have some Italian seasoning. So I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of that. So our Italian seasoning is actually just a bunch of herbs together. It has marjoram in it, oregano, basil. So we're just going to, it has thyme in there. I'm going to mix that all in, make sure it's all combined. And it's going to rehydrate those dry herbs. You can always use fresh herbs as well if you have them, and these times it's a lot easier with our dry herbs. And then our final ingredient is going to be a little bit of sugar. We're going to sweeten that up just a tiny bit, just a little pinch. And then we're just going to let that simmer. Okay. So, while I have that simmering on the side, we can move on to our toppings. So we have a few different toppings here. We've got our mushrooms, our bell peppers, where you can see a full one here. You can use any color you'd like. And then we also have some baby spinach. So I'm going to start with our mushrooms. I love mushrooms. So we are going to take the mushroom, and we're going to take the stem, and we're just going to wiggle it. Just wiggle it a little bit and get that stem right out of there. You can definitely use your stem for these mushrooms and chop it up as well. I like to use all of my mushroom. Typically I will chop it right until it goes to that end part, which was in the ground, because that can be a little dirty and a little dried out. But the reason why I like to pull out the stem first is that it gives us a nice flat surface to chop up our mushrooms. So I'm going to take my mushroom, and what I like to do is look on the other side of my chopper while I'm chopping to make sure I have a nice small piece on the other side. All of our toppings we're putting on raw. So we want to make sure that they're small enough pieces that when we put our pizza back in the oven with the toppings on, that it can cook all the way through. So I'm going to do nice thin slices of our mushrooms. Just like that. Heat's still quite high on my sauce. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit more, but it smells delicious.
So people are wondering about the sugar. It was mixed in with their...
Yes. If you got the cooking kit with us, we did add the sugar in with the herbs.
Literally the teens.
Yeah, it's a very, very tiny pinch, so it's not much needed. I'm just going to keep on slicing. Alright, and you guys can use whatever toppings you want on your pizza. My favorite toppings on pizza is usually going to slice up our stem, get rid of that ending again, and then we can move on to our mushroom. Nice thin slices. And like I said, this is your pizza, so you can do it however you like. You can also chop the mushrooms up into tiny little pieces if you prefer. Did our camera go out for a minute? All right, so now moving on to our sweet bell peppers. The red pepper is the sweetest of the pepper, that's why it's my favorite to use. And I actually like to make pictures with my pizza, so I'm gonna leave my bell pepper a little bit bigger, but the shiny skin on the bell pepper is really hard to get through. So you don't wanna put the shiny skin down or up. You wanna hold it right on its side. So the shiny part is either pointing towards you or pointing away from you. And then we're just gonna push down and saw through, just like that. I'm gonna do, like I said, a little bit of bigger pieces to make sure that I can make a really cool picture at the end. We've got some of our bell pepper there. Does anybody else have a favorite topping that they put on pizzas? What do you guys think? There's so many different ways to make pizzas. If you guys have seen our most recent updates on our website, we recently put up classes for the next 2 weeks, and every Friday we're going to be doing a different pizza, so I'm very excited about that. We're going to do an enchilada pizza one week. We're also going to be doing a white pizza with greens, or Popeye pizza. So yeah, we have a lot of yummy pizzas to come. I could literally eat pizza every day. Probably not the best for me, but we do use half whole wheat flour in ours, so slightly better. So we're going to keep on chopping. And we'll just keep that on its side, because there's lots of water inside of our bell peppers. And so if you chop it right on top, it ends up all sticking together. A lot of the water comes out trying to saw through it. So it makes it much better, and it saves a lot of the flavor on the inside if you chop it that way. You do not want to end up with some mushy pepper at the end. And just like that. Perfect. Well, I'm going to give you guys a second to catch up, and I am going to go and grab our dough and see how it was looking. So already, this was the dough we made at the beginning. You can see that it's risen some, and it's got a really fluffy texture. If you poke into it, it's very elasticy, and that's what we're looking for. So that was our dough that we made right at the beginning. All right. So we've got our baby spinach next. Our baby spinach is also very tender, so we do not want to use our chopper to chop this up. What I like to do for the spinach is find the largest leaf in your pile and make that the bottom, and then start stacking all the rest of the leaves on top. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a nice little pile here, and then we're gonna roll it. We're gonna roll it just like this into a little tube. You can definitely eat all the stems. There's no reason to chop the stems off. They're all very soft. And then we're gonna take our scissors. So when holding our scissors, we can hold them 2 ways. We can have our helpers help out and hold our spinach if you guys want. And you can hold it just like this, open up and close. We're gonna do a chiffonade is what it's called. It's a French term, and it actually means ribbon in French. And the reason for that is because when you cut them very thin, it looks like a tiny little ribbon. So I'm just gonna go through. Another way, like I was saying, if you have somebody else hold it for you, and you're still working on your scissors, you can take them with 2 hands and go right, open and close, open and close. So I'm gonna take my pile and just thinly slice. Thinly slice. You can start smelling that delicious sauce. Open and close. Perfect. All right, and I'm gonna start working on my next pile. I'm gonna make this next pile a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna take that big leaf, put it right on the bottom, and then just keep on stacking. Then do we get some questions? Looks like we got some questions. I've got Mr. Ben here with me, helping me out.
Someone is asking if you can start again on the spinach.
Start again on the spinach. For sure, I'm exactly at that point. So, I'm taking my largest spinach leaf I have. Sadly, I have very tiny leaves here, so I don't have a lot to work with. But find your largest leaf, put it right at the bottom, and then take all of your other leaves and stack it right on top. And then we are gonna roll it. Does anyone remember what that fancy word I said of the chop we're doing? It's called a chiffonade. Chiffonade. So then we open up our scissors right at the end and chop all the way through and make them into tiny little ribbons. And just go straight through our spinach. Chop and chop. All right. So there we go. Like I was saying, we don't want to use the chopper for things like this because like our bell peppers, there is a lot of water in our spinach and it'll just mush and bruise it. And we do not want to bruise our spinach. We want to leave it all nice and fluffy. So I'm going to go one more time. Try and find if I can find a spinach leaf. Yes, Mr. Ben?
Someone's dough is a little tough/hard coming out of the oven from their par bake. Is that okay?
Yes, oh for sure. No, you want it to be completely cooked at the bottom. You can, even if it's a little bit brown, that's perfectly fine. We are going to put it back in, but we are not putting it back in for very long, so it's not a problem. So I'm doing it one more time with my leaves. And now I've come down to my tiniest leaves ever. We're going to roll it. Rolling, rolling, rolling. And then we're going to start to slice. Slice straight through. Alright. So, I'm going to gather all of my spinach and put it on my prep plate. I love to have everything set up and ready for me, so when I'm ready to top my pizza, I've got everything right here. So I'm going to get rid of all of our odds and ends. Clean that up. And where's everybody at? Are you guys ready to move on to the next thing? I know I'm very fast when I'm cooking. But if we are, I've got our mozzarella cheese next. So, anybody who got the kit, we did send you home with a big block just like this. So if you are in a different, depending on the size of your group, that's how many times you want to cut up that cheese. And depending on what type of grater you are using. Here at the kids table, we use a pretty small grater, so we want to think about the amount of space we have. So we want to about this big of a slice of cheese because that's about the size of our grater. So I'm going to cut those all up, pushing all the way through. Got two. All right. So now that I have some pieces the proper size for grating, we've got our grater. So our grater is very sharp, guys. We want to definitely be very careful with this because just like it can grate your fingers, or grate the cheese, it can grate your fingers. So when we're holding onto our cheese, we want to pull our fingers pretty far back. You don't want to go all the way to the end because if you have a very long piece, this is just going to break in half. So find it right in the middle. You're going to hold your grater on a diagonal. So you're going to push the grater's bottom against the cutting board, that way you have something to brace against. And then you're going to make sure there's a big open space here. So while you're grating, the cheese can build up and you're not struggling to get it to push through. And then we're going to push down. Push down. It's just up and down. So the softer the cheese is, it's good to keep your cheese in the fridge until you're ready to grate it because I took mine out a little while ago and it is quite soft. Just wants to crumble a little bit, but you're just going up and down, and as you get closer to the grater, you are pulling your fingers back. Just like that. So this is a regular processed mozzarella. It's a low moisture mozzarella. You can always use buffalo mozzarella as well, although that is much higher in moisture. That's the fresh mozzarella you see in the balls that people slice usually. But we are not going to use that today because like I was saying, it's so high in moisture that sometimes you can even end up with a little puddle on your pizza. So I prefer to use cheeses that have lower moisture and will become a lot stretchier when you bake them. So we are going to use our mozzarella today, but you could actually use all different kinds of cheese. One of my favorite cheeses to use on pizza is Chihuahua cheese. It's got a similar texture to mozzarella, but it's a lot saltier, so it gives you that extra salt, and I do love a good salty cheese. Does anybody have a favorite kind of cheese? Mr. Ben?
Goat cheese.
Ah, goat cheese.
Maybe not for pizza.
Yeah, you can make a good pizza with goat cheese. I would probably put a melty cheese on there as well, but goat cheese is really good too. I actually don't dislike any cheese. There is no cheese I've ever met that I didn't like. So we're just gonna keep on going. And you're gonna get little pieces like this. You can either tear them up into smaller pieces to put on your pizza, or you can just eat those pieces. It's up to you. But remember, if you're sharing anything, to make sure to wash your hands in between. We do not want to be sticking our fingers in our mouth and then sharing some pizza, as nice as that is. So I'm just going to rip those up. Don't worry, I'll put a piece aside so I can try it too. And then I'm going to keep on grating. Grating is my least favorite of the cooking chores, because it takes lots of muscle, and I do not have the muscle for that. Just up and down, up and down.
Some people like provolone.
Ooh, provolone on pizza. I think that might be one of the only cheeses I haven't had on a pizza. I've made a lot of pizzas, but no, that does sound delicious. If you did a mix of baby Swiss and cheddar would be really good on a pizza. Yeah, there's a million different ways. I love all sauces on pizzas. One of my favorites is to use a white sauce, which we'll do in a few weeks in that class. So just keep on pushing. You're going to want to take that mound of cheese and move it to the side so you have lots of room to grate some more. And then just up and down, up and down. Is everybody getting through? Hopefully everybody's pizzas have come out of the oven by now too, your pizza crusts. Because we have our sauce, we've got our toppings, and we've got our cheese, so it is almost time to do some pizza topping time. And down. And the only thing I forgot, if you guys don't have it yet, is we will need a spoon to spread out our sauce. So I'm going to ask Mr. Ben to grab me a spoon, which he's already got in me because he's ahead of the game. So if you need a second, you can go grab a spoon, and I'm going to keep on grating. All right, the soft cheese does not want to grate for me. Almost there. I think that'll probably be just about enough cheese once I get through this last one. So I'll save those two other ones because I'm not making that much pizza over here. Almost there. All right. So, now that we have gotten through all of that, I'm going to gently brush off my grater on the back side. You don't, again, want to brush on the front side because that can hurt you. So just on the back. And then we're going to put that down. And then we can get to the best part if anybody wants to try the cheese with me. Nope. It's delicious. Okay. So I'm going to go get my pizza crust out of the oven. And we'll get ready to top. I've got my gorgeous pizza crust. And if you remember before when I was lifting it up, it was all flopping over, but now it's nice and flat and straight and it can hold itself up. That's what we're looking for. And I'm gonna get ready to top. So Since we're working at the sauce at the same time, it's still quite warm, so we definitely want to be a little bit careful with this. If your helper wants to put it in a bowl, maybe blow on it a little bit, make sure it's not too hot for you to handle. And then we are going to take a big scoop of our sauce and do that about 3 times, depending on the size of your pizza. And I like to spread out the scoops around. Put one down here. And then we're going to take the back of our spoon and we're going to start moving our pizza sauce all around. What we're looking for is to still be able to see the crust through it. Unless you're really, really into pizza sauce, you just want a nice thin layer. Because otherwise, when you go to cut your pizza, all the sauce is going to shoot out. So you just need a nice thin layer on top. And then take just a tiny bit more. Remember, we have that bay leaf in here. So you can push that around or you can make sure to just remove it. So we do not want that ending up on our pizza. One more. I've got a tiny spoon here. Move it around just like that. Put that there, and then you guys can see that it's a nice thin layer. You can still see some of the crust through it. So now that we have that all the way around, I like to tuck it into the edges too, underneath the crust. And then we're gonna take some cheese. And like I've stated already, I love cheese, so I do not skimp on my cheese. I like to completely coat that. And as far as veggie goes, I like my veggies on top. Like I was saying, I like to make pictures with all of my pizzas, but you can definitely put it underneath. If you put it on top, it's gonna be a little crispier. And underneath, it'll kind of steam it a little bit more with the cheese and sauce. So it just depends on what you're looking for your pizza. So we're gonna sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. Again, depending on how much you like, I like to completely coat mine, but you can also do a thinner layer. And then we're moving on to our toppings. So all of these are my favorite toppings to add on pizza, so I'm adding all of them. So I'm gonna do some mushrooms. We're gonna do some bell peppers over here. Wonder what you guys are putting on your pizzas at home. Just like that. Beautiful. We might do, we're gonna put you right there. And then to our spinach. Spinach is going all the way on top. Okay, so you can see as I was talking about, I made a nice little picture. I got a happy pizza. I'm gonna take that pizza and put that right back in the oven. So we've got our sheet pan over here with the parchment. I'm gonna place that right back on top. And then we're gonna put that back in the oven for about 6 to 8 minutes, depending on. You wanna get the cheese completely melted, and then you also want it to start bubbling and get a little bit of brown spots on it. What you can do too is if you have a broiler in your oven, you can always put the pizza in for 6 to 8 minutes and then pop it under the broiler for a minute just to make it nice and really bubbly. So hopefully everybody has come up with some really creative pizzas here. All right, I'm gonna pop this in and I will be right back. So now we have our pizza in our oven, and that is the final step, guys. We just need to get all of that cooked, and then it's time to eat. So I will be bringing that out in just one moment to show you guys. You do want to let your pizza sit for a minute once it comes out of the oven, just to let the cheese sit. Otherwise, the cheese likes to stick to your knife and drag around, and we don't want that to happen. So you can just let it sit for about 2 minutes, and then go ahead and cut it up and give it a try. And I think we're ready, because I've got a little bit of kitchen magic going on here. So let's see how our pizza looks. So you can see where it starts to brown at the bottom there, all around the edges. Nice crisp crust, and it's gonna be delicious. So we are all set, and I'm ready to eat some pizza. But I really appreciate you guys coming and cooking with me today. We are actually going to be making a breakfast skillet tomorrow with Miss Elena, so tune in tomorrow for that at 11. And I hope to see you guys again. Thanks so much. Enjoy your pizza.